So, Jimin, good to see you. And what I'm hoping to do today is demonstrate a process that I've been developing that I've really liked. It's called climbing the inner map, and specific to an issue that um, seems very relevant for folks, and especially, I don't know, maybe not really in your age group. Probably anybody has some
Yeah.
awareness of kind of the state of our world, the state of a planet. But for
hmm
sure, somebody who's in your position of coming into your prime and into your, stepping into your world, seems very relevant to
hmm
address what you're being fed as information, and what that's like to be able to do something with life in a different way.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'm just going to show this inner map that I've been working with. I'm going to do just a little bit of description of this, and then it's a pretty straightforward process of just walking up the map. So I'm going to share my screen and show the map. So this is a very simplified version of this map of consciousness by David Hawkins. So if you see down there, you can see the attribution. He wrote many books, but one of the books was called Power versus Force, where he introduces this map of consciousness. So if you see down there, you can see the attribution. He wrote many books, but one of the books was called Power versus Force, where he introduces this map of consciousness. My map is based on his work. What he did that was so brilliant is he said, okay, there's all of these states of consciousness, and you can actually line them up. And I got so interested because I noticed some things like, oh, anger and fear, emotion words as a psychologist, like, oh, got my interest. But he
hmm
said, yeah, the way you line these up is according to how much energy they have. So if you start way down in death, you say no movement, no energy. But shame is so close, because when we feel shame, we go into this contracted, frozen, oh, I don't want to move kind of place. There's very little available energy, at least from the outside. But as we go up the map, well, there's just a little more energy. We don't feel good when we feel guilty, but we feel a little better than we do when we're in shame.
hmm
And as you keep going up the map, by the time you get to sadness, if you can actually cry, again, it doesn't feel good, but it feels better than this stuff down here.
Yeah.
And some people really like it up here because there's a lot of energy. Yeah, I'm mad. It gets us going,
hmm
moving. I'm going to do something. Um, but we're still below the line here. So this line, this horizontal line, is a very important um, this, not that kind of thing, where when we're below the line, when we're all in these experiences, we're all in reactive brain, meaning there's cortisol happening, there's stress response, there's adrenaline. It's just not good for us to stay
hmm
there. Then we get up here and like, oh, what a relief. We feel better. Yay. Right. Our bodies feel qualitatively different. So what I got very interested in is, well, how we anchor ourselves into these certain states of consciousness. And then it seems like it's the truth. Like if I'm sad, I remember. I mean, my brain actively remembers other things I was sad about. And then it
hmm
just seems like, oh, see, I am sad. No wonder I'm sad, all the sad things. Now, despair is a really good example of that. If we get knocked into despair, for whatever reason, this immobilized experience, we look around and it looks like there's no reason to stay alive. We keep going further down
hmm
the line, right? It's hard to keep going because there's very little energy there.
hmm
So that's the landscape here. I'm just going to walk us up the map. So you don't need to know anything about this. But I'm going to go from shame, guilt. We're going to go all the way up, hopefully.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And I really feel a lot of gratitude
Oh,
to you right now. So
oh, thank you
thank
so
you.
much. I'm
There's
so
so
glad
many,
I could help.
right? There's so many things you could be doing right now. And you're doing this. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I hope some good comes out from it, and we can help others as well.
Great. Well, okay, so let's nail down the issue. I sent out a kind of a query for somebody who's in existential despair about the state of the world, and
hmm
you said, oh, maybe me. So for you, how would you describe that?
I mean, I think it comes for me. every now and then, I will get the feeling or thought of just kind of what is the point of everything. And it's not even necessarily in a sad or depressed way. It can almost feel just matter of factly. Um, yeah, just from a very practical standpoint, sometimes I find myself asking, what is the point of all this? What is the point of just anything? And that can happen even when, like I said, even when I'm not necessarily feeling down or sad or cynical. And I consider myself a pretty emotional person, but sometimes the logic just comes up in me and I find myself asking that question.
Yeah, what's the point?
Just like some more details, maybe, or things that sometimes get me to think about that is, when I'm like saving a lot of money, sometimes I wonder, like, oh, what is the point of all this? Or when I'm working really hard at work, or even when I am not working very hard at work, if I lose a lot of focus or motivation some days, that can also kind of send me in that direction of asking, what is the point of all this? And sometimes it can be when I'm thinking long term, short term. It can really come up in, yeah, just a plethora of different ways and contexts.
That's very helpful. And so what's the point? And just to kind of nail it down as an issue, should we talk about or call this issue, what's the point of life? Something like that, or what's the point of working hard, or what's the point of existence?
Yeah, I guess so. And that also makes me think another thing is, my brother, for example, he really wants kids. I do not. And so in his case, I understand a lot more of why he has more obvious reasons for wanting to leave the world a better place than he found it. Obviously I do too. It's not like I just want to like, treat this world horribly and then leave it once I die. Nothing like that by any means. But just to say that he has a lot more obvious reasons for, seeing a point to life even after he is gone. And even if he doesn't have kids, he is very big on leaving a certain legacy behind. I don't have as much of an attachment to that. And again, it's not because I don't care about this world or the people in it. I am very big on like actively loving the world and trying to love others, but I just don't necessarily have an attachment to leaving a sort of personal legacy, or like people don't necessarily need to remember me at all, I guess. But I know a lot of people do grapple a lot more with wanting to be remembered forever or going down in history.
But that's not you. That's not a thing.
Yeah, if it happens, that's great. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a desire to be remembered by a ton of people, even after I'm gone. It would be great if the people I care about, who care about me, remember me. That's different. Like that small group of people I know well, yes. But in terms of like strangers or the world or just like society at large, have never really needed that.
Well, so as we get started here, the first little bit, this is kind of a taking you to a darker place, maybe, just to kind
Sure.
of warn us all, like,
Mm-hmm.
because I'd like you to start, if you're willing, to start down in shame. And when you're having a really one of those days, or maybe I don't know if they last for you, to those times, what are you thinking about with yourself? What are your what's the story you're telling yourself? Or see, like for me it might be, what's the point, because I don't have anything to offer anyway. Or like if you're
Mm-hmm.
really in that shame place, what would be your story?
Some of it could definitely be around why I don't have a stronger desire to, leave a legacy or certain thing after I die. And feeling like maybe I should care more and
Mm,
wondering if there's like something wrong with me that
right.
I don't.
Yeah.
Because
Nice.
it can almost feel like a human duty or obligation to want to make like this profound impact on the world, I guess.
Right. Got it.
Um, and again, if that were to happen, that would be great. It's not like I'm just trying to trash the world by any means. But I just recognize that I don't have as strong or proactive of a desire for those things as a lot of other people, as most people that I've met do. And then, yeah, that can lead me to wondering, is there something wrong with me? Should I be more motivated? Am I lazy? Do I not care enough? All of those kinds of questions can pop up.
That's such a great example. So maybe there's something wrong with me that I
Mm-hmm.
don't have this strong urge to leave a legacy.
Yeah.
What's really, if I were a different kind of person, maybe I would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good shame story. Yeah, that's good. And so the next level is guilt. So I wonder what your guilt story is. Shame is about who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Guilt is about what I've done.
Oh,
How about
okay. That was a very great, concise way of explaining it. Guilt, I think, would come up in the form of like, why am I not doing more? So like one big life goal I have is to be like a professional full-time novelist.
that?
So I work as a writer currently, but not really in the creative writing space. It's more like communications and copywriting. So while I do feel very grateful for that, I am not as actively working towards that goal of more creative writing, like novel writing, as I would like to. And so that is something that I have grappled with a lot because I've been saying for so many years, you know, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book. My goal is to be a published novelist and to be able to do it full time. And yet I just haven't taken enough initiative to actually do the writing and the work that it takes to, you know, become a novelist. A really big motivation behind my dream of becoming a novelist is because books have always played a very, very big role in my life, and they have been there for me. And I think it's amazing that, you know, authors and writers who have never known me, never met me, who may have existed in completely different geographies, different centuries, can still pinpoint an exact feeling, you know, or experience that I'm going through
Yeah.
so well.
Yeah.
And through that, they make you feel less lonely. They, you know, show that people can understand you, that we're all in this together. Um, and so I would love to be able to pay that forward to others
Oh,
through my own books and my own writing. And so when I do think about, you know, maybe I will leave a legacy, or how will I leave this world a better place than I found it? What impact could I have on people? If I were to ever have that impact on a bigger scale, I do think it would be through books for me or through writing, right? And so then when I don't take the action to write or to take more proactive steps to become published or find an agent, et cetera, whatever it may be, I can certainly start to feel guilty, and also like I'm letting my own self down kind of, and giving up on myself, whether that's out of, again, like laziness, lack of work ethic, fear of failing, fear of rejection. Yeah.
that was great. But the guilt here is, oh, I should be doing more and I'm not doing it.
Right.
I could be doing more, like that constant, I could be, why aren't I? Yeah, I can imagine, especially as a writer, that if that would be right there for you, like, oh, I could be, but I'm not. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay, so guilt. Okay, so the next level is despair. So when you let yourself go into despair, what is
Mm-hmm.
it you're saying about your life from there?
I feel like I have felt a lot of despair. I think when I feel hopeless is probably when I feel like a lot of that despair and kind of like deep sadness, or I feel very immobile and like paralyzed, as if I don't really have energy to do anything, or even if I do, I don't have the desire to do anything, like kind of lacking interest, you know, in even in activities or people who previously were very engaging to me. Yeah, hopelessness really triggers it. Yeah, hopelessness. And I think hopelessness couples really well with those thoughts and questions of what is the point of life and existing. And I think those questions definitely pop up the most for me when I am feeling hopeless. I know I did open by saying it can come up in a lot of contexts in a lot of different ways. I have still pondered that question, like what is the point? Even when things are going well or things are kind of neutral. But I think more like most often when it does come up, it is definitely coupled with feelings of hopelessness.
Got it. And it sounds like maybe something's happening in your life where you feel hopeless, and then like, I give up, and what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of swirls around, like,
Yes,
and you
definitely.
get really
Definitely all
immobilized.
intermingled. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
got it.
the immobility, kind of the paralysis is a big part of it. I've had days or even weeks where doing the simplest things like felt so hard and I couldn't do it. Like I've gone days without showering, or I would just like not eat. Like getting out of bed felt like so difficult to do, much less the bigger things like going out to meet people, or going to a social event, finishing a full work day, going to the gym, like whatever it may be.
Yep, got it. Got it. Thank you for us walking around in that. I mean, I understand, I relate. I mean, what you're describing is so, for me, it's relatable. So I really appreciate you laying it out so beautifully. Yeah, okay. So the next step up on the map is sadness. So what is your sadness story about life?
Sadness story about life. Mine is for a majority of my life, I have felt some sort of void. And I don't really know what would fill that void or if it will ever be filled. And growing up, I think I started, showing kind of the symptoms of like depression and anxiety in late high school, but then it was really prevalent after I graduated. So within like maybe the last 5 years or so of my life. But up until late high school, on paper, my life was like perfect. Yeah, no, I had no complaints, like such supportive friends, family, parents are still together, have a great relationship with my brother, no problems in social life, dating, was financially comfortable, safe and like physically and psychologically. Um, and even so, even despite all that, um, I was still hit with like depression and anxiety. Um, and also like I have pretty severe sleep problems. And they all kind of feed into each other too, because when I can't sleep, I get more anxious and I get anxious about not being able to sleep.
Yep.
And then when I started feeling all those feelings for a while, I started to wonder like, oh, how can I, who had seemingly
Oh,
such a
right.
perfect life, like how can
Right.
I, yeah, like why am I depressed? Why do I feel anxious? And so it actually wasn't until like 8 years later that I finally decided to see a therapist,
Oh,
who then, like officially medically diagnosed me. Because up until that point, I just like couldn't convince myself. I couldn't believe that someone who had as fortunate of a life as myself
yeah.
had, yeah, could like, experience depression or anxiety or whatever it may be. And then thinking back, I just kind of realized like, oh, I have always just felt some void, like something has just felt missing from my life for a very long time. And I think that is definitely not the whole, it might also be like chemical and everything. And there have also been tough experiences I have gone through since then. But yeah, that feeling of something just being missing has always made me feel kind of a deep sadness and a deep longing. But because I don't know what it's for, it's really hard to ever fill it, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
Yeah.
I've tried filling it with, friends and family and money, material goods, experiences, romantic partners. For a long time, I thought it was. Maybe if I had like a very secure romantic relationship, thought that might fill the void. But currently, I am also in a very like healthy, secure romantic partnership, and the void is still there. What do you
Yep.
know?
Got it.
So that was not the answer.
Oh,
But
so frustrating.
yes, and so for me, that is the biggest cause of some pretty deep sadness. And because I, again, don't really know what it is, and I do feel that longing even when everything else in my life is seemingly going well, the sadness can really come out of nowhere, right? It can definitely come out when other things are going wrong or I'm stressed for other reasons. But even when everything is pretty good, generally going well, sometimes I'm just hit with like the sadness. I will kind of cry out of nowhere, and I can't really explain why. So I don't really know how to stop or, quote unquote, fix it either.
Right.
So I feel like that's almost like a non-answer answer because I again don't really know what that void is, but just this feeling that something is missing and the deep longing that it causes is a big source of continued sadness for me, I think.
Yeah, I got it. Totally get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
for being such a good listener.
yeah. I mean, once we've gone all the way up the map, I'm going to give more context that might actually help some of that, but let's
Okay.
keep
Yeah.
going and we'll come
Let's
back.
keep going.
So the next step on the map, the next level is frozen fear. And again, these are just like what one level to the next is just
Mhm.
more energy. It doesn't mean a better story, different. So I'm asking, when you're in frozen fear, what is your story then about life?
I think that could connect back to like the inaction when I am not making progress on my books, for example. Um, I think there the fear is specifically around like fear of failure or fear of rejection. And then, I can tell this story to myself that feels like safety when it's not, or like a kind of protection, even though it's not, of, well, if I don't ever start or try, like if I don't write anything, that writing can't get rejected because it's not there in the first place.
Smart, right?
Sure. Yeah. And so that is definitely a type of frozen fear that I've experienced. And then also, I think in certain social situations, I am normally quite good at navigating social situations and I'm not shy by any means, but I do still consider myself an introvert and I can get a lot of like social anxiety leading up to um, social gatherings, especially if big groups are involved. And what ends up happening a lot of the time is, leading up to the event, I dread it. I hope it gets canceled. I try to like think of excuses not to go. And then I go and then I have a great time as I knew I would. And yet the next time the same thing happens. Right. And I have made a lot of progress with it, but there was a period in my life where I would cancel on plans much more often than not. And I think that was a manifestation of that frozen fear for me. Like I just felt like I couldn't get myself out there, even though the stakes were so low. Just the fear of it wasn't, I don't even know what the fear was of, because again, the stakes were low, there were no stakes really, right? It's just going to a social event or meeting up with someone or a group of people. But there were a lot of times where I just could not get myself to move into that space. And I would just cancel on plans a lot, stay at home and not really do much of anything, but I just wouldn't go out.
And what do you think, if we could sort of get down to the basic
Mm-hmm.
thing, like, because I'm scared of how people will perceive me, or I'm scared of being like, What do you think was like underneath all of that?
It just felt like work, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, to meet up with most people. And so there have always been a few people who I am very, very close to, who I'm very comfortable with and myself with, who never really drain my energy. And so they are exempt from like all of these statements I'm making. So with them, it like didn't feel like work. But outside of that small group of people, it didn't feel leisurely, I
Uh-huh.
guess.
Yeah.
It felt like I really had to make deliberate effort. And it
Uh,
wasn't about, putting on a facade or anything. I could still be me. But it just felt like it took so much energy,
It
I
takes so
guess.
much energy to do this.
Yeah. And it just
Got it.
like drained my battery, drained my
Uh,
energy. Um, yeah, that was a big part of it. And maybe without me realizing it in the moment, because you did bring up just now, like, oh, was it fear of rejection? It could have been that too. And I just didn't see it in the moment. Just fear that these social interactions wouldn't go well for some reason. Yeah, and I don't, and it's pretty unfounded because again, like I have always had good social relationships, good friends and support groups. Um, yeah, I just had
yeah.
fear and
Yeah.
like
Just there it
social
is.
anxiety.
There it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of like the point of this whole thing is those stories matter. Like what we're saying to ourselves, even if it's not really overt, like the actual words, oh, I'm
Yeah.
scared I'm going to be rejected
Right.
or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's going to be way too much work. I'd rather stay
Mm-hmm.
home. Really
Mm-hmm.
matters. Is we just sent it through our brain. It's like, yeah, okay, staying home again. It totally makes sense to us at the
Yeah.
time until the next moment of, oh God, now I'm home and whatever, wherever we go with that. But so then what's your agitated fear story about life? If you ever let yourself kind of like, huh,
Hmm. Agitated fear. I'm hurt, especially by like people I care about. When I get hurt, sometimes instead of communicating that I am hurt, instead it can kind of, I can build defenses or walls instead. It manifests as like anger or agitation, irritation, frustration, but it's not actually that. It's actually just pain, right? But when I struggle to, I think, either admit that to myself or if I do know it for myself, admit it to the other person or people. If I can't admit it, then I think it comes up as some other negative emotions. And then it feels like agitated fear, like it's coming from a place of fear. And because of that, I can lash out, I can be more irritable, I can get angry,
great.
um, I
That's
can get
great.
defensive,
Yeah.
all of that.
So, and what you just did, you rolled us up to the next level on the map, which is anger.
Okay.
Yeah, well done. Right. I think it's hard for us to distinguish when we're having the experience between agitated fear and anger. I mean, there's a
Yes.
lot of energy in both of those.
Yeah.
So when you are like, yeah, getting into your anger story, what is it you're saying to yourself or someone else?
Mm, anger comes up for me when I feel that the other person is one wrong
Absolutely.
and or unfair or unjust.
Uh-huh. It's unjust, unfair. Mhm.
Hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that's definitely when my anger comes up. I don't feel anger is probably one of the emotions I feel less
Mhm.
often
Mhm.
compared to, like sadness or
Okay.
shame or fear or happiness or joy.
Uh-huh.
Um, Anger, I don't feel too often, but when I do, yeah, it is when I feel wronged or when I, like, on behalf of someone else, I feel like they were wronged. And so then I get angry, at the quote unquote perpetrator.
Mhm. Got it. Great. All right, we have one more step, then we finally get above the line.
Okay.
That's you're almost there. You're kind of right at it. Pride. Now, pride here on this map is righteousness.
Hmm.
It's not like I feel good about myself. It's more of a
Mhm.
righteousness. I'm better than you kind of a feeling. So, what would be your pride story here?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like again, tying into kind of those things that can also trigger my anger. It's when I feel like the other person is wrong and I am right. As if I know better, or
Nice.
like, oh, why can this other party not, like, why is it not so obvious to them the way that it is to me,
This
that
is
they are wrong and I am right? So yeah, like you said, definitely feelings of righteousness, just feeling like you know better, or that I am justified in what I am doing and the other person is not. Because obviously I'm not perfect and no one is, surprise. Like doing the wrong thing for the right reasons,
Mm,
right? Sometimes I can do things that are just objectively not the best course of action, but I feel like I can justify it to myself, or I have
great.
a reason for doing it. So, like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't lash out at this person, but they did XYZ, so they deserve it. Or because of these special circumstances, I have a right to behave in this way that I
Great.
otherwise wouldn't, or that I,
Nice.
don't necessarily approve of, generally speaking. So I think, yeah, for me, that pride is when I think I'm right, and someone else is wrong, or when I feel justified, for behaving in a certain way or doing a certain thing.
How does your body feel right now versus, let's say, back to despair or shame or guilt? Like, how does your body feel just from the inside?
I'm sweating less, which is good.
Okay,
I think,
good.
yeah, earlier on, I didn't really realize it. But yeah, I was definitely sweating a bit. And then when I was talking about, I think it was sadness and maybe despair, I did notice, my voice was quavering a little bit, like quivering a little bit. I could feel, yeah, my body tensing up a little. I was like, oh, am I going to tear up? Hopefully not, because this is being recorded.
Right on it.
Yeah, I definitely felt some of those, but it is starting to feel a bit lighter, like less tense in my body. And even as I'm saying, things that aren't necessarily the most flattering for myself, like for example, saying like, oh, I might lash out at someone even if I know that I shouldn't because I feel justified. It feels like I'm able to say that more lightly, like almost playfully, like we're
Yeah,
kind of laughing about it,
yeah,
we're like kind of making jokes.
yeah. So just something to notice, like, and all that changed was what you were saying,
Mhm.
which is, I think, just, well, it's so interesting to me that you were the one generating all of these stories, but really the only thing that changed from one level to the next was what you were saying. What was the
Right.
story itself was connecting you, I think,
Yeah.
to, and vice versa. Like the despair story can help you feel more despair, and the despair itself can generate more despair stories. So it kind of goes
Mhm.
hand in hand. It's
Yeah.
easy to get caught in any of those because we keep saying it and feeling it and saying it and feeling it.
Oh,
But
for sure.
that's just a little side note. So let's get above the line because you've been down in that stuff for so long. So what would be a neutral story about life for you,
Mm,
about your life?
a neutral story.
Yeah, neutral story.
Sometimes neutrality it's like more difficult for me to think of neutral examples than, overtly like happy or overtly
Yeah.
sad sometimes. Yeah, it's just here. Like you said, it just is.
So to notice that, especially because you're a very strong mind, big thinker, that all you did, now I know I suggested the is, but all you did was start to be with that and your body shifted.
Mm,
Oh, it is. And I accept that it is.
mhm,
And then there's this big burst. It looks like I'm trying to hold you back from joy. It's like, but oh, woohoo, like that somehow opens something for you.
Yeah.
Because I think what we're doing is shifting to a whole level of consciousness, and that,
Mhm.
but you just did that. I mean, I didn't do that. You did that. I said some words, but you thought the words, you spoke the words, those were your, like, you did that.
Mhm.
So we're going to play with the in betweens here, because you're it's jumping at the bit. What can you appreciate? So we did neutral as being with and acceptance, and then what do you appreciate about life right now?
Um, I think anytime that, like with the neutrality or with acceptance, definitely appreciate that. Um, when you accept something, it's just there's no resistance, right? You're
Right.
not being forced one way or the other. You're just kind of accepting what is
Mhm.
as it is. I think that's a really, really big thing to appreciate. Because also, even bringing it back to what we started this conversation with that question of what is the point? The thing is, even if the answer was like, there is no point, all of this is meaningless. But if you accept that, it doesn't feel that bad. Like if you are truly able to accept that, you're just like, oh, okay, there is no point. Okay, then I am just kind of free to do anything or free to do nothing. Or if there is a point, if there's a really big, revelatory, profound point, and you accept that, then that's great too. Like I feel like acceptance is such a key part of just feeling okay and like good with what is in front of you. I think I personally appreciate that so much more, especially because I can definitely be an overthinker, or kind of like an over worrier, over planner. Sometimes have trouble like letting go of control, and I think acceptance is kind of the cure or maybe antithesis to all of those things, right? It's just like if you can just go with the flow and accept things as they are. And I recently saw a quote, I believe it was Ram Dass who said it. He says something along the lines of, when you go into a forest and you look at all the trees, you just see them for what they are, and you notice that some trees are short, some trees are longer, some trees are bent this way, some trees are shaped in this way. And you don't ask, you don't like judge or criticize, you just understand that, oh, this tree got more sun on this side, so it bent this way. This tree, XYZ, and so it turned out this way. And you just appreciate the trees for what they are. And then he ends the quote by saying, and so lately I've been trying to do more of turning people into trees, which means just accepting them as they are. And I think that's what acceptance is. And then, of course, that's like a really big thing to appreciate.
It sounds like one takes you right into the other. Like if I,
Yeah.
it's totally in the acceptance moment, it's easy for me to just appreciate
Mm-hmm.
this whole landscape of
Yeah.
treeness and existence.
Yes, of treeness and humanity, existence. Yeah.
How's your body feeling now?
Very good. Yeah, light. It's continuing to feel
Uh-huh.
lighter and lighter, I think. I yeah, I feel a lot less tense. I think before, often without realizing it, like you have tension in your body. Like I had maybe
Sure.
a tight jaw,
Yeah.
or I was like, kind of holding my hands
Uh-huh.
tight, or my shoulders were rigid. And now it just kind of feels a lot more loose, a lot more flexible, and kind of like fluid.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So underlining, and you're the one doing that, which is a huge piece of this. Like, whoa, I think that's incredible. But you're the one doing it because you just generated the things that would allow your body to open up and relax and feel more fluid. So, and we're not even at love yet. So, what would be
Amazing. It's all only, yeah, only
no,
going up from here.
true. So, what would be a story about a love story about life for you?
Mm, love. Um, there's so much love. Family, friends, um, partners, myself.
Uh-huh.
Self-love is definitely important. Even like coworkers, acquaintances, strangers. love has been an interesting thing for me throughout my life. I've always been a hopeless romantic, very like absolutely love. I love seeing
Oh,
other people in love,
oh,
reading about it, watching it on the screen, hearing love songs, experiencing it for myself, showing it to people, receiving it, whatever it may be. And for so long, I very much believed in, the concept of like soulmates and destiny, love at first sight. At one point, I questioned whether I was making too big a deal of love.
oh.
And not to say that, but I meant that I mean it in like an optimistic way.
Okay.
Um, like the big love with like family, friends, people who know you well, all of that,
Yeah.
amazing. So fortunate to have it. But then I also started wondering, like, oh, like you can also experience moments of love, and it's not like romantic love, of course, but I think you can experience like short moments or interactions of love, even with strangers or acquaintances or coworkers or people that you don't have a long history with, through whether that's like a show of deep empathy in an interaction or, just unnecessary kindness, or just lending some type of support in an unexpected situation, even though that person won't get anything back from it. And that's not necessarily to say like in those interactions, it's not like that person is in love with me, but they are showing love in a way, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by like, oh, maybe I'm overthinking this love
I
thing.
see. I see.
Because I don't necessarily, I haven't necessarily like ruled out the possibility of soulmates or destiny or anything like that. I still do think that's a wonderful love story, but I think my view on love has grown to include a lot more possibilities.
Yes.
Um, and as I've gotten older, I have started seeing much more importance in not only romantic relationships, but also the relationship you have with yourself, the love that you get from your friends, and the love that you get from your family. Sometimes I literally feel like the luckiest person in the entire world because of
Whoa.
the friends
Whoa.
and family that I have, just because of how quality they are to me. Like, I literally can't believe it sometimes. So I feel immense love from them.
So how's your body now?
um that did start making me like almost tear up a bit, but in for very good positive reasons.
Yeah.
um my chest feels full of like gratitude. It like feels like it's like overflowing out of me, and yeah, in that moment just now I did, yeah, start
Good.
tearing up a
Good.
little
Got
bit.
the heart's
It
got a lot
was,
going on in there.
yeah, it was
So
all from a place of gratitude for sure.
so to notice that again, just as we're going through each of these stages, we just have two more, so we're almost to the other side of this. But to really see, again, you're the one generating that huge heart, that you generated your tears, like you're the one that did that. And how you did that, I think, was by just
Hmm.
describing what it's like. So to anchor yourself into those states. So we've got two more. Joy. What's your joy story about life?
Joy.
Joy.
I think when I experience something that is that just like moves me and like electrifies my whole body, like one of the best concerts I went to was for one of my favorite bands, and I was, front row, like singing along to every
Oh,
single song.
what?
And it was so wonderful,
Oh,
and definitely felt absolute joy in that moment. Um, Another time I feel joy is when I can like help others or kind of pay things forward. For example, at the previous company that I worked at, I eventually joined a team where the hiring manager kind of took a chance on me, like put himself on the line so that the team could hire me. A couple years down the line, after I had switched roles, he reached out to me asking if I could help him like help refer him and get him a role at the company I was at.
Oh,
And I was so ecstatic to do so. And it
got
just
it.
like felt like such a great opportunity, you know, to pay the favor back. And I felt immense joy there.
Once you, like when you got to joy, now joy is connecting you to this example and this example. Like it actually, right? It's reminding you of all of these other times that you felt joy. And so
Yes.
like note to self, because I'd say that's true with despair and that's true with frozen fear. Like when we're in the state, we
Yeah.
remember things from that state. So
Yeah.
letting yourself actually enjoy the state means you get to, oh yeah, and another thing. And then there was that one time that you really get to immerse yourself in all of
Yeah.
this great stuff that you yourself have generated. Like, whoa. Okay, we got one more. Peace. What's your peace story about life?
Peace. I think peace ties in a lot with acceptance for me too. Because again, peace, I think, comes to me when again I can accept life for what it is and accept myself as I am, accept other people as they are, accept the situation as it is. Yeah, peace is like the ultimate goal.
Okay.
And I think peace is about no matter what is happening externally, you still feel calm and at ease on the inside.
Yeah.
For me, the moments of peace always come as a unexpectedly. Peace never comes to me when I am trying to feel at peace. It just comes and it's a surprise, but I feel it when it does come. I feel it like wash over my entire body. I suddenly feel so calm and just unflustered, like everything could be going wrong and I'm just okay. I'm not necessarily like happy about it, but I accept it. And again, I think that's why acceptance and peace tied together so tightly for me. But yeah, I just know that it comes when I'm not like yeah, when I can never force feelings of peace. It can come in the most unexpected moments. Sometimes it comes in kind of expected moments, like if I'm traveling, you know, in another country and I'm like, I was in Greece recently, and you know, I was like swimming in the Mediterranean Sea and overlooking the beach and everything. And then I felt like this sense of peace wash over me, and it was amazing. But in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, I can understand why I feel at peace right now, right? So there are certainly moments where it can be more expected, but there have been many, many more times where it just seemed to come out of nowhere, and it can be the smallest thing that triggers it. It can be a quick note from someone if they message me something. It can be a line that I read, something that I see, something that I feel, an action I'm doing. It can just be the most random, small thing. And then it just creates this like wave of peace that comes over me and it feels so, so good. And I know every single time I get that feeling, I always find myself wishing, like, oh, I wish I could bottle this feeling and then just like have it for later whenever I want. But like I said, it's not a feeling that I can ever force or it just happens.
Got it. Makes sense to me. And meanwhile, I wonder how your body feels right now because you were talking about it washing over you. Like, are you actually accessing some of that feeling right now?
Yeah, I feel quite
Huh.
good.
Oh,
Definitely not.
well,
It's
maybe.
not. Yeah, it's not necessarily like that same exact feeling that
Yeah,
I was
got it.
describing, but
Yeah.
as I'm thinking about it, I mean, the stories we tell ourselves matter a lot, and especially for a writer like me and who wants to write books, like the words I use with myself matter a lot. And
Matter.
as I was describing all of that, I think it definitely started manifesting itself, you know, physically and literally in me too. It felt very peaceful.
So you might have more to do with this than you think. And we just made it to the top of the map, which is really, I just want to speak that it's really not up down, it's more contracted, expanded. It's
Okay.
just easier to show it quickly if it's up down, but it's very much like shame, guilt, despair, and out here, whoa, peace, woohoo, right? So letting your body experience all of it. And so just to try to summarize, and we'll end soon here, but for you to notice, yay, that you're writing stories. Thank you. Thanks for putting them out there, because you are a magnificent storyteller. Now, I want to say, so are we all in many ways. You've got a lot of detail in there that you add and enhance, and like you make the stories better and better. But that can be to your detriment.
Oh yeah.
Right? So if you were going to anchor in despair, for example, when we did that earlier, you could add lots of details to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, and they're all true. Like I know despair. I know what that feels like. And that sense of yearning and sadness,
Mm-hmm.
you could easily go there. Now, I'm not sure that we didn't solve the yearning, but what I think you could take away from this is you have everything to do with how you are feeling physically, emotionally. Now, everything is probably too strong, but right, you have so much, because basically I see us as we hypnotize ourselves. We're very good at hypnotizing ourselves into a certain state. I can totally hypnotize myself into frozen fear or pride. Oh yeah, right. Any of them. But for you to get conscious and aware of the state you are actually inducing, so that you can actually choose which state you want to go to. Because maybe in a crappy weather day, you want to be like, oh yeah, today is a total despair day. I'm going to go way into shame and guilt and just be like, oh, I just hate my life and myself, and I should be doing more work, and I don't know why I can't. Right? You could do that if you wanted, but to get much more conscious and aware of, or maybe not, because I really do want to write. So I'm going to let those stories churn over here, but then I'm going to go over them. How about just neutral? Because neutral, I could just say, yeah, I am. And that could get me to acceptance. And then maybe, because there's more energy out here, then I might actually want to do something, because now I've generated energy instead of these others. They tend to use up energy. So getting very nice on a November cold, icky day, but get cozied up. But to start to see how good you are at this is the point I'm underlining, because Jimin, you are really good at this. And no wonder you would get stuck, right? No wonder you get stuck at some of these. Totally makes sense. But to see that you actually have something you can do about that.
Yeah, that's true. And the person who can control their own mind, I think, is like the most powerful person.
There's a lot of power up there.
And that's definitely something I've been trying to practice for myself too. That I've come across, something along the lines of, tell everyone my happiness depends on me. So you're off the hook, because the only reason that you don't love someone is because you're using them as an excuse for not feeling happy. I think that's true. No one can make you feel angry or upset or ashamed without your consent. And of course, you should still treat people well. But ultimately, like you said, maybe not everything, but ultimately, a lot of it does come back to yourself. The stories you tell yourself, the words that you use with yourself. And and there's a time and place for everything. Sometimes I know I'm feeling sad and I'm okay with that. And I just let myself feel sad. And that's fine too. But yeah, definitely agree. It's obviously easier said than done, but I do think that we all have a lot more power than we think in affecting how we feel and kind of what emotional and mental state we're in.
And now when you write your novel or novels, I mean, you could even choose, this novel's going to be, well, you sound kind of like a romantic. So I don't know if they're going to be romance novels. I don't know. It's okay. Anyway. Right. I mean, you can, I think, play around with this in terms of starting in one state that's contracted and below the line, but then, enjoying these other states, but with your words, right? That's, you're really generating and anchoring yourself into those states, and then your readers.
Yes. Because the most powerful novels are the ones that, can empathize and explain and understand what other people are going through, the emotions that they're feeling. And again, that's a really big driving factor behind why I want to do it, and why I'm so interested in books. So yeah. Thank you for saying when and not if. All
Oh,
right, my
yeah,
book.
totally. The series.
Appreciate
I'll
it.
be watching for your name out there on the shelf. Well,
But
so that's the process. Thank you so much for your generosity and your time and your willingness to speak what's there and show us, demonstrate. I really appreciate this.
yes, definitely. And thank you so much for introducing me to the process. I will
Okay.
definitely be spending more time with it. I think it'll be a really great tool. So hopefully, we can share it with others too.